Good morning. It is 11 a.m. Eastern on the East Coast. Thank you for joining us for this Nuclear Innovation Alliance event in support of the publication of the new U.S. Nuclear Energy Project Tracker developed by Dr. James Richards and the team at NIA. If you'd like to view the tracker, you can do so right now, actually, under the Advanced Nuclear tab on the NIA website at www.nuclearinnovationalliance.org. My name is Ben Finzel. I'm president of Renew PR. I'm the communications consultant for the NIA, and that means I have the honor of serving as moderator for many of their publication events, including this one. The NIA is focused on creating the conditions for success for new nuclear. That means they work to educate key audiences about both the challenges and the opportunities related to increased development and deployment of this important technology. Key to understanding these issues is insight and information about the projects that represent the leading edge of nuclear energy development. Today's event will provide an opportunity to hear from industry experts, including Kreshka Young of Dow, Katie Spence of TerraPower, and Andrew Harmon of Natura Resources. We'll also hear from NIA's own Dr. James Richards, who will demonstrate how to use the tracker and provide additional background on its development. But first, we'll hear from NIA President and CEO Judy Greenwald. Judy's going to introduce NIA and talk a bit about the tracker and the work NIA does every day. So Judy, over to you.
Thanks so much, Ben, and thanks everyone for joining us today. For those of you who don't know us, we're a think and do tank, and our mission is to help create the conditions for success for new nuclear energy so we can play a major role as an energy security and climate solution. There's been so much progress within the nuclear industry in the last few years. There are new announcements about nuclear energy funding, projects, licensing, and governmental changes almost daily. This is truly an unprecedented time in all areas of nuclear project development. Because of the speed of progress and the varied development pathways, it can be difficult to understand what each announcement means and how important intermediate milestones are. So that's why we've developed new resources to help understand what's happening. In October, we published a report, Early Mover Project Progress, Key Indicators to Watch. And today, we're here to release our new tool that tracks project progress against these key indicators. In this conversation, we'll share our insights to help stakeholders and decision makers understand what's happening in project development, where and by whom. We hope the new project tracker will be useful to stakeholders and decision makers interested in new nuclear power development in the U.S. Now I'm happy to turn it back to Ben to get us started. Ben.
Thank you, Judy. Before we continue with the program, I want to share a bit more about today's run of show. After Dr. Richards' review of the tracker, we'll hear from our roundtable of experts representing leading nuclear developers and customers. That discussion will be followed by an open Q&A, and you're welcome to put your questions in the Q&A section now. I'll do my best to answer them in the order in which they're received once we start the actual Q&A session a little bit later in this event. And please be sure to list your name and your affiliation as well. Now, let's look at the tracker. So let's turn things over to Dr. James Richards to talk about it. Over to you, James.
Thanks, Ben. My name is James Richards. I'm the program manager at Nuclear Innovation Alliance for programs relating to project development and nuclear economics. And, Judy mentioned this. We've seen such a large number, such amazing movement in the nuclear industry, large numbers of announcements, things like memorandums of understanding, government partnerships, investment rounds, and licensing, and on and on and on, right? And, all this news is amazing, but there's a key question that stakeholders kept bringing back to us, and they kept asking, what does this actually mean? There's so much to sift through, and frankly, there's so much to do in nuclear project development. So we kept getting, what does all this mean? How do I understand where projects are, right? And so, to that end, we tried to take a step back and we said, okay, what are the common threads between projects? What are good practices that everyone really needs to follow? And then distilling down, what indicators of progress are there? What would help us, out in the public and stakeholders understand where each of these projects are. And so Judy mentioned, that was the basis for a report in the end of last year, and I'd encourage everybody to go take a look at that when they get a chance. And I believe we'll drop some links in the chat here when we get a minute. But entitled Early Mover project progress key indicators to watch, where we go through and we really thought, okay, there are 5 indicators that we think stakeholders can look at and can watch and monitor to understand where these nuclear projects are. So the 5 indicators are site selection and work, licensing, offtake agreements, project teaming, and financing. And we'll go into more of those. We'll have our panelists talk more about what each of those, what they're doing in each of those sections. So hopefully the webinar today should also give you a good understanding of what each of these might mean, especially in the context of 3 developers who are out doing it. So as these indicators came together, we thought, well, okay, we have these 5 categories. How can we help the stakeholders who are asking, how do I keep up, right? And so that's where the tracker idea came in. And so I'll share my screen here and show this tracker. So this is housed on the NIA website. And again, we'll throw links in, so don't worry about writing it down or anything like that. But so we come to our website and we have our little blurb and link to our other report, and the tracker then comes through, and we try to update this on a monthly cadence, where we have each project that has started to make significant progress in each of these key indicator areas. And this is based on publicly available data. So, if it's in the news, if it's been released by organizations, then we try to collate and collect all that and put it in here. And these go over many different projects, both demos and commercial projects. And so if you're interested, we have many demos, such as, some of the reactor pilot program demos you might have heard of. And as we come through, the user can come down, look at this list, and then start to become more and more familiar with what's been happening on a project. And so I'll use Andrew is on from Natura Resources. I don't want to totally steal his thunder, but we'll show the Natura project, the molten salt research reactor. And you can come through, and we've started to bucket, okay, what is Natura, what have they been doing on licensing? So you can come through and you can see just exactly where they are. What have they been doing on their sites, their selection, their site work, their progress? And so we can come through and understand, they've completed they've completed construction on the non-nuclear portion of their demo facility. That's amazing, right? Offtake, project teaming, and project funding. I'll note on project funding, since this is based on public information, that section can look a little different. So I'd encourage everybody to come through and take a peek, see what's in here. We feel that there's been a lot of good data out there, and we just want to make sure that it's all highlighted, all accessible for stakeholders, so that you all can have it, use it, and really understand what great progress has been and what all that means. So, and then with that, I will stop sharing my screen, and I'm really excited for panelists today, and they'll give us great insight on what project development means and is. And so with that, I'll turn back to Ben. So.
Thank you, James. It's great to know that these resources are out there, like this new tracker. Really, as you mentioned, they will help all of NIA's diverse stakeholders understand the state of the market, and also paired with the report, the barriers and solutions to accelerating the development and deployment of new nuclear in the U.S. And again, the tracker link is in the chat, or you can go to the NIA website and the Advanced Nuclear tab to view it. But now let's hear from some of the industry leaders who can give us some real world perspective on these barriers and solutions and help to illuminate the key issues around new nuclear energy development. We're going to start with Kreshka Young, the North America Business Director for Energy and Climate at Dow. Kreshka will be followed by Katie Spence, the Business Development Senior Manager at TerraPower. Katie will be followed by Andrew Harmon, Vice President of Operations and Business Development at Natura Resources. I'm not going to interrupt the conversation to introduce each person again. It's just too awkward up and down. So they're just going to speak in order, in the order that I just listed. So we'll start with Kreshka. Kreshka will turn things over to Katie, and Katie will pass the virtual mic to Andrew. I'll come back after Andrew finishes his remarks and we'll get the Q&A started. So now let's hear from Kreshka Young.
All right. Thank you, Ben. And thank you to the NIA for inviting me to speak and also for creating this great tool. I think there's, a lot of different use cases for it, and we'll continue to discover what they are as we go through it. So as Ben mentioned, I'm Kreshka Young. So I'm Dow's North America Business Director for Energy and Climate. I've been with Dow for about 19 years and have held multiple roles across our manufacturing, feedstocks, olefins, and energy organizations. I, along with my team, have the business and commercial responsibilities for all of our operating energy assets, of which I think last count there's around 40, across our large sites in the US and Canada, including setting the end-of-life asset renewal strategies for those assets. As a result, I'm also the business sponsor for our small modular nuclear reactor project, utilizing X-Energy's technology in Seadrift, Texas. So I think one of the coolest and most unique things about our project is really in the way that we're working so closely with X-Energy. Since Dow's wearing both the owner/developer hat, meaning we, along with the DOE through much appreciated ARDP funding, are paying for the project to be designed and built. And we will also ultimately consume at least 50% of the energy in the form of either power or steam that's produced. We have really chosen to work hand in hand with X-Energy through an integrated project management organization structure to develop the project. One of the reasons that we can do this, quite frankly, is because Dow does have a lot of mega project experience that we bring to the table and have our own internal EPCM, so Engineering, Procurement, and Construction Management organization that can support this type of work. So where are we on our project? From a regulatory perspective, our construction permit application was submitted March 31st of 2025 and was docketed by the NRC in May of that year. Our combined team is working very closely with the NRC to answer any questions that are necessary to ensure that the reviews are completed at least within the schedule that was published. We did recently receive notice that the scheduled publication date for our environmental assessment has been moved up to April 27th. And our safety evaluation remains on track for November of this year. From a project perspective, we are in front-end loading 2 for both the nuclear island and the conventional island. With respect to the nuclear island, all of that work is being led by X-Energy with support from an EPC contractor that they kicked off with earlier this year. And then for the conventional island, that's work that's actually being performed in-house by Dow. So again, like I said, with our mega project experience, that's skills that we can bring to the table to help move our project along. From a fuel perspective, the NRC recently announced the approval of TRISO-X's 40-year Part 70 Special Nuclear Material License for advanced fuel fabrication at TRISO-X's facility in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, which is critical to ensure that the fuel facility is fully operational in time to start manufacturing both the LEU and HALEU pebbles that are going to be required for commissioning, startup, and ultimate operation of our facility. The bottom line is that our combined team is working really hard to progress all of the deliverables to the point needed for Dow's next investment stage gate, which we have scheduled for the first quarter of 2027, in line with the expected receipt of the construction permit. Assuming everything goes according to plan, we could begin construction as early as mid-2027 and be operational in the early 2030s. I'll be happy to answer any questions when we get to the roundtable part of this, but in the meantime, I'll hand it over to Katie.
Great. Good morning. Thank you so much, Peshka. And thank you to NIA for having us here. This is a really, really great opportunity for all of our companies to just really spotlight what we're working on. And just from the business development side, I'm super excited about the tracker because it really allows potential customers to identify, you know, some really good options for them. So thank you for that as well. I'm Katie Spence. I'm the Senior Manager for Business Development at TerraPower. I've been here almost 2 years now, and business development at TerraPower definitely doesn't look like business development in a lot of other companies. We cover quite a lot of area, but I specifically work in the market development, origination, and strategy portion of my department. And at TerraPower, we are also, like X-Energy and Dow, we're very fortunate to be the recipient of the ARDP award. And through that, we are building the Natrium technology in Kemmerer, Wyoming. So the Natrium reactor is a 345 megawatt sodium fast reactor with the ability to ramp up to 500 megawatts through our integrated energy storage using thermal salts. We submitted our construction permit application in March of 2024, and this is before a lot of the changes at NRC, but we have been, you know, fortunate to be on the positive end of that, and we are expecting to receive our construction permit in the next month. We were able to start our non-nuclear construction in the summer of 2025, so that was a pretty exciting moment for us. And we have started the construction specifically of what's called the test and fill facility, which is a way to de-risk a lot of our technology, but also the training center. And so we're really looking forward to starting on the energy island and the nuclear island as well. We have also been able to award 100% of all of our nuclear island components as well. So our supply chain has really strengthened over the last several months, and we're really excited about the partners that we have who are going to bring this technology to the forefront. I am looking forward to whatever questions you may have, but for now, I'll pass it on over to Andrew.
Thank you, Katie. I'm Andrew Harmon. I'm an executive with Natura Resources. I've been working with Natura now for 6 years and involved actually in the MSR project for almost 10 years now. Natura Resources, we're an SMR developer with a mission to provide the world's most critical needs of energy, water, and radioisotopes through the deployment of molten salt reactors. Our MSR design incorporates critical safety features and leverages the existing uranium supply chain, enabling the ability to scale manufacturing of reactors that economically produce both heat and power. The technology also allows us to utilize domestic supply chains with existing skilled labor from oil and gas, manufacture in factories and assemble on site. Our focus has been to accelerate and de-risk the path to commercial deployment, which starts with our demonstration unit, the MSR-1, listed in the NIA tracker. So we completed construction on the facility in 2023. This is a non-nuclear structure to house our reactor. We began construction actually in 2022 before the filing of the construction permit with the NRC later that year. NRC approved the siting and construction of our reactor in 2024, making it only the second advanced reactor ever approved for construction by the NRC. Last year, we were admitted to the DOE pilot reactor program, where we are seeking authorization for initial operations of this facility while also working in parallel with the NRC to support long-term operations. We also received a fuel allocation from HALEU from the DOE in August of last year, and then in December executed our OTA with the DOE and received an allocation of molten salt towards the end of the year. This is kind of a fun connection to the MSRE, if you're familiar with the experiment in the 1960s. This was salt that's been sitting at Oak Ridge for over 60 years. So very excited to bring that to Texas and put it to work. So for the past 6 years, my primary responsibility has been capital formation. To date, we've raised over $120 million of equity capital, including investors such as Toyota Ventures. In the last year, the state of Texas stepped up in a big way. They supported the construction of our demonstration unit with a $120 million appropriation from the state legislature. As many are aware, the state of Texas is set out to be a global leader in advanced nuclear. We've got a largely Texas panel, Texas-based projects here that I'm excited to share the stage with. There's an interest from state level of our efforts connected to the work we're doing in the Permian Basin and around produced water. Earlier this year, we announced an agreement with NGL to combine their expertise and technology in water treatment with our MSR technology for thermal desal of produced water treatment. Our design enables a cogeneration of both electricity and heat for water desalination, maximizing efficiency and resilience while addressing the oil and gas industry's growing need for large-scale, cost-effective water desal. We can repurpose the produced water for agricultural and industrial applications across the United States. This is just one of the many of the collaborations and partnerships that we have formed. Others include Zachary Group. We've been working with them for many years as through the detailed design and in the construction phase of this reactor, as well as Teledyne Brown. We've been working with them since the FEED work. They've been great to work with, and others such as 3M. Late last year, we also announced an acquisition of Shepherd Power from NOV. This was a strategic transaction to accelerate commercialization of our MSR technology and enhancing our ability to offer comprehensive power solutions to our customers. Shepherd Power was a leading voice in the advanced nuclear regulatory space and has expertise and requirements to site, build, own, and operate reactors. You combine that with NOV's expertise in scaling highly engineered equipment to drive down delivery costs. The transaction positions us to lead in delivering large load deployments at scale to support critical power needs, including industrial, data centers, and AI. All of our commercial efforts have been accelerated and de-risked with the deployment of our MSR1 demonstration in Abilene. So we have a completed facility, maybe the only facility approved to site an advanced reactor at the moment. We're under construction for the MSR1. We have our fuel and salt allocations necessary from the DOE and the funding that I mentioned from the state of Texas. We're on track to deploy. With all of this, we're on track to deploy one of the country's first SMRs. Very excited to be able to show this in the tracker. So thank you to the NIA for their work in putting this tracker together so that we can track progress across all of these projects. There's so much activity in this space that it's very nice to have a place where all of this can be captured. So thanks to the hard work of the NIA team to do that, and appreciate the invite to be on today's panel.
Well, thank you. And speaking of Texas, I went to Texas Tech University. So there you go, continuing the thread that Andrew mentioned. Kreska, Katie, and Andrew, thank all of you very much. There is no substitute for insight from people who are actually doing the work, as I think we just saw. And we appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge with all of us today. Now we are ready for the Q&A, and it appears all of you are as well, because the Q&A box is starting to fill up, which is wonderful. As a reminder, you can type your question in the Q&A box. It is helpful if you list your affiliation as well. I will try to make sure we get through all of them. If we don't, we will follow up by email after the fact. So first question is from Greg Schultz. And Greg is asking if there are plans to expand the tracker to a global perspective versus just the US. I'm guessing that would be a question for James, perhaps?
Yeah, I can take the mechanics questions. So yes, I will say that we are only at the US at this point, and that's because of the level of detail that we'd like to keep within the tracker. There are no current plans to expand internationally, but I wouldn't say it's off the table. At NIA, our focus as of late has been more domestic market, and we've really kept the tracker in line with that. So,
thank you. Next question is also for you, James. It's from Robert Freeman at Framatome. Robert asks, since Kreska and Katie just provided more details than currently reside in the tracker, will the tracker be updated based on this new first-person information?
Short answer is absolutely. So this is a great example. We try to index on actual kind of citable things, right? And so Katie, for example, gave us a great note today about the expectation of receiving the construction permit from the NRC. And so we have we have great things to point to from these companies. And so we really try to index on public citable. The TRISO-X probably just slipped my thing, so I got to update it. So
Thanks for that. Next two questions are from Amana Syed, writing for RTO Insider. And she did comment that most of the questions have been answered. We'll put them out there anyway, just in case they're useful for other folks. Her first question, can you tell those of us unfamiliar with terms, what is an energy island and a nuclear island?
I can take that if that's amenable to everyone. A nuclear island is the portion of the overall plant that houses the reactor. So where the actual nuclear reactions are happening. So that for the Natrium plant, that would be like your reactor buildings, some of your fuel loading buildings or other like auxiliary buildings that support the actual reactor functions. The energy island is where the energy is essentially produced. So this is like your turbines, your generators, you'll have your main control room. So you really separate the two. And in Natrium's case, what's really incredible is that that energy island is not under the jurisdiction of the NRC, which means we can start construction on that with just the local and state permitting. So we don't have to wait for the construction permit. We only have to wait for the construction permit for actual nuclear construction on the nuclear island.
Thank you. Clear and easy to understand. Always nice. Amina's other question is, based on the timeline shown on the tracker, which SMR plant will end up being the first commercial plant? Well, isn't that the $64,000 question? James or Judy?
I can start, and then if our panelists want to get in here. So the short answer is who knows? The longer answer is there are lots of folks in these trackers that are project that you see, the companies that are working and running for this. There are lots of ducks that they have to get in a row, right? There's the construction permit application. The construction permit has to be in hand. There's, their construction teams and all of those things. And so one of the reasons we actually picked these three panelists is there's a lot of stuff that they've been doing. And so in that answer, can we give you who's going to be first? I think and hope all the panelists would say they will. But from a more neutral NIA answer, it's going to be those that can put all these together, that can get all this stuff in a row, and then we'd expect to see these, after that. Crystal ball is very, very hard. If you have one, please let me know. I'd love to use it. So,
Judy, it looks like you want to add something.
Yeah, I'll just say, we tend to say there are no facts about the future. We can only say if-then statements. And what we're trying to show with the tracker is where we know people are and we try with the indicators to show where they have to go. And this is kind of exciting in that it's a race of a sort. But it's also the fact that, they all can come in at slightly different times, but we're still expecting development towards the end of this decade and early next decade. And we're seeing successful early mover projects on the way to achieving that.
Thank you. Nicely handled. Amina has one more. I'm just going to do that so that we can finish up on those. It's a question for Katie. How soon after receiving the permit do you start construction?
Yeah, we could actually start immediately if all, EPC contracts are in place, if all of the logistics work out. We are in Wyoming, which can have all 4 seasons in one day. So we also have been very sensitive to just the environment and, what exactly we need to keep in mind as we start this, really, really substantial construction. The plan right now is to really just start, digging in as quickly as we can. So not much of a lag time.
Thank you. Next is a question and a comment from Greg Schultz again. For capacity, is the intent to capture total megawatts for the project or individual module capacity? I see Longmont is listed as 80 megawatts, which is a single module, but total capacity is a 4-pack. would recommend a total capacity versus individual module for this metric? So I'm thinking that's the James Kreshka
Yeah.
combination, maybe.
Yeah, and I can actually spin this question as a question I might have for you. So that's a great idea, actually, is to go through initial capacity, total capacity, and coming back to Kreshka, you're the developer with Dow. If you could talk to us about that project, and then maybe about what the follow-on reactors might look like, right? So is it more of a sequential, let's build one, or does work start for a 4-pack immediately? I'd love to hear about what that looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about that. So yes, I mean, each individual reactor that we are intending to build is 80 megawatts. We are intending to build X-Energy's standard offering, which is a 4-pack, so a total of 320 megawatts. Part of the reason that we're doing that, and part of the reason we love X-Energy's technology for our specific application, is that with the smaller modular size, you can stack multiple units together and get a very, very high level of reliability, which is what we require to operate a petrochemical manufacturing facility. On an electric standpoint, you can always get that additional layer of reliability from the grid, but that doesn't exist from a steam standpoint. And so you do need to build some amount of overcapacity in the form of different additional modules to do that. So we are going to build the full 4-pack. Once it's fully operational, we expect approximately 1 unit will supply the steam day in and day out that's required to run our site. Approximately 1 unit will supply the electricity needed to run our site. And the other 2 units will be used first to provide the reliability. And then secondarily, the excess electricity will be sold either to a partner that might come in, some sort of PPA off-taker, or just to the ERCOT grid itself. So, but I do like the suggestion of maybe modifying the tracker a little bit to show both the individual size and then what is planned for that facility, because it could be different. I mean, the other thing that is important to note is X-Energy's technology is designed around an idea that you could ultimately run 12 reactors out of a single control room. And so when we laid out the plant at Seadrift, we have in our minds that in theory we have space that we could eventually add a second and a third 4-pack. But of course, that's significantly down the road and would require an off-taker or an eventual customer for that activity to commence. So
Really helpful. Thank you both. And we're already improving the tracker. Judy.
Yeah, I would love to solicit more ideas like that. We are releasing this, but we're really open to making it as useful as possible. We plan to do updates monthly, and we will definitely take on board any suggestions people have to make this as useful as possible to people who need it.
Thanks for that, Judy. Next question is from Robert Budnitz, and I'm sorry, but I'm not familiar with your affiliation that's not listed here. The question is, it is commonly accepted that SMRs won't be economical unless multiple orders emerge that will enable economies of manufacturing to be realized. Many of today's SMR developers will probably fall by the wayside for lack of such multiple orders. What is today's situation for the leading SMR developers? Well, that is a question. My goodness. Anyone want to go first on that one? I'm looking around the room.
Sure, Ben.
Andrew.
I'll jump in. For us, it's an iterative approach. So we've taken a unique pathway through a demonstration reactor. And so we're cutting our teeth and exercising our supply chain, operations, maintenance, training, all those things on a demonstration unit for the exact purpose of bringing down and those first of a kind risks. So, working to both accelerate our commercial deployment, but also de-risking those said commercial deployments through this iterative approach of a demonstration unit. So our MSR1 is a 1 megawatt thermal reactor. Our commercial unit will be a 250 megawatt thermal unit producing 100 megawatts of electricity. This iterative approach allows us to leverage our licensing expertise, or the regulatory efforts at the NRC, as well as like all the material studies, the component suppliers, the vessels, the heat exchangers, all those things. We're getting experience in training and operations and maintenance data from that demonstration unit. So in an effort to bring down those risks and essentially improve the economics of those commercial units. And then in addition to that, as you look at the deployments of the commercial units, it doesn't take as many units as many would think to bring that cost down dramatically. So, being a modular constructed reactor, there's many advantages of bringing that cost down very, very quickly. And the experience of those like Dow and partners that we're working with, NOV and Zachary Group, have that experience in bringing those costs down very quickly.
Thank you, Andrew. Kreshka, and then Katie.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, you're absolutely correct. The first reactors bear the burden of helping stand up the supply chain. And I'll just say again, this is one of the reasons that, we are very thankful for the support that we have from the DOE in the form of the ARDP program. And so, I think X-energy has taken a little bit of a different approach compared to Natura. And I have to believe at least part of that is because of that great support from the DOE in that funding. I would also say that we are very fortunate that Amazon has taken an interest in X-energy, not only with an investment in the company itself, but they are working with Energy Northwest to be a fast follower for our project. They're working on a project up in Washington State, and I assume that project is also in the tracker. But all of those things, and I know there are other customers that X-energy is working with to sort of be those follow-on customers, and we're working with all of them to the extent that we can to figure out ways to accelerate getting that supply chain stood up and achieve benefits for all of our projects. But yes, absolutely. When you're doing something new, there are some risks and some burdens that have to be taken on by those first projects.
Thank you, Kreshka. Katie.
Yeah, I'm not going to add too much because Andrew and Kreshka, I guess we're just all on the same wavelength, which is good to hear. But economies of scale is really, really what we need to get to, all of us, to be successful here. But like Natura, like Dow, we look at our first unit as a way to de-risk, and we are very willing to take on a lot of that risk. We have our test and fill facility, which will be a fully sodium environment to test all of our components to make sure that before we are operational, we really understand what needs to happen. And also we know how to talk to our suppliers and our vendors about, the requirements that are needed for a technology like this. We're fortunate that we recently signed an agreement with Meta for up to 8 units. And when we see signals like that from the market, and when we see our order book growing, it's easier for us to have these conversations and to build strategic supply agreements with our vendors and really, really ensure that we have not only fuel for years and for, however many reactors we're projecting, but we also have slots in these, very, very busy, very successful vendors that we have now brought into our supply chain. So I think all of us on the panel can say this is on the top of our mind. We're very thoughtful about these things. And I don't think any of us here are looking to open the door of the supply chain and then close it right behind us. We think about this as an industry-wide approach. And that's probably why we're on the same page, because we're constantly thinking about how we can ensure that we don't go the way of so many failed projects in the past.
Well, that was a big question, but an amazing answer. This is why you do these kinds of conversations. To hear from the three of you is just fantastic. Thank you so much. Continuing on with the Q&A box, it's just staying full, which is wonderful. Tom Moore from Sargent & Lundy asks, how detailed is the tracker with the steps of the licensing process, such as all the steps from pre-application to design certification to operational approval? I'm looking at you, Mr. Richards, Dr. Richards.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We go through and where each company is. So in this process, we'll discuss, okay, this is pre-application for X-energy and TerraPower. They've submitted the construction permit application. We also will try to list out if the NRC has accepted, since that's slightly different than simply just having it submitted. That's another small step forward. And then as well, if the construction permit was awarded, and then should any operating licenses be awarded, that will be in there as well. I will say one thing that you'll see in the demonstration projects, many of them are using the DOE process, DOE authorization, and so we try to illuminate where folks are in that process as well. Lots of reactor units having gone through the preliminary documented safety analysis, for example, and that information is in there. So.
Thank you, James. Next question, Robert Eichord, Atlantic Council. Is it possible to aggregate regulatory progress without going to each project to get a perspective on how the NRC is handling all the applications?
Yeah, it's something that we've actually talked about internally, and that would probably be something in a Rev 2. The filtering can get interesting with many different pathways, the DOE, the Part 50, Part 52, the different Nuclear Regulatory Commission pathways. So it's something that we're aware of and we're looking at. So
wonderful. Thank you. Another technical question about the tracker itself from Jack Britt. Any plans to add the fuel cycle into the tracker, e.g. enrichment and fuel fab?
Yeah, we don't here. We wanted to keep it on projects, reactor projects. NIA does a lot of incredible work around the fuel cycle. Some of my colleagues and I, there are some things that I don't know that I necessarily can tease yet, but just watch NIA space with the work that we do in the fuel cycle. So I'll leave that there.
Great. A question from Dan Solitz, slightly outside the scope of the tracker, but I'll put it out there. Any chance of reusing sodium stored at the FFTF at Hanford? I'm thinking that might be for Andrew, but it doesn't really say, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, Andrew, I think it could be for either of us. Do you want to go first?
I would imagine it's for you.
Okay.
The salt we're using is coming from Oak Ridge. It's from the MSRE experiment in the 1960s. That's what we'll be using for the demonstration unit. We've also established strategic supply agreements for our lithium necessary for our commercial units going forward.
Yeah, so for sodium specifically, we work very closely with the with Hanford, with Keenan, well, with all of the labs, of course, but looking specifically at FFTF, we have a lot of their staff on our staff here now. So we've gleaned a lot of information and really interesting insights from that. As far as the actual sodium that they have, so there's primary loop and sodium and secondary loop. We don't need to get into all of the details, but some of that sodium that was used, especially in the primary loop, is not, for lack of a better term, clean. And so while we could use it for testing and we could learn from it, it's not something that we could actually put into our reactor. So for the most part, we just rely on FFTF as the experiment and as the data that we can use in our safety case or in some of our licensing activities. But the actual sodium is not something that we are able to use.
Thank you so much. Really helpful. Another question from Greg Schultz, and this will be for James again. Can you speak to the criteria the NIA uses to determine when a project is listed on the tracker, especially for demo units? For example, the DOE's reactor pilot program has 10 companies participating, but not all are listed here yet.
Yeah, we generally go with either an announced site or significant licensing progress. And the reason we do that is you will see a lot, and not to say this is any of the reactor pilot program demos, but you will see a lot of folks kind of announce stuff and then things fall by the wayside, right? I can think of a project in Idaho that was announced a while ago and there was not a lot to it, right? So we really try to keep that barrier high. To that point, there's the reactor pilot program moves so quickly right now. So it's something that we need to maintain awareness on and make sure we're updating. But that's the beauty of kind of a live tracker, right? So.
Thank you. Did you want to add anything? I didn't want to just rely only on James if you wanted to say something.
Well, we rely on publicly available information, and it's certainly if people know of news that we might not have seen, once again, we'd love to hear it, and we'd be happy to enter things where there's genuine progress.
Thank you for that. Another question from Amina Syed, writing for RTO Insider. Should the anticipated completion date be taken as the date of starting operation, or is there many a slip between the cup and the lip here? Great phrase there, Amina. James, I guess that's for you, maybe?
Yeah, I think so. Yes, the anticipated completion date should be the starting of operation, but you know, you see in the tracker, there are lots of TBDs and things, and so there are lots of moving targets very early on in this process. As companies get more and more down the road, then that date starts to shore up more. So I think you'll see things change reasonably often in some of these early stage projects. So.
Another question from Amina, and this is for all of you. Big picture question. Can each of the panelists touch upon the top regulatory financial changes they have faced in reaching the various milestones? How has DOE helped in overcoming these barriers? Who wants to go first? I'm sure the first answer is how much time do you have, right?
Right. I can go on for a while here. And Bill, I'll start here with, our regulatory path started with the NRC and a University Research Reactor Program. Our founder CEO, Doug Robinson, went to the DOE with our partners at ACU back in 2019 with a plan to accelerate the commercial development of molten salt reactors through the deployment of a university research reactor. And DOE said that's genius. How fast can you get started? And that's really the impetus of Natura and where Natura got started. And so started with the DOE engagement, and we went along that pathway. Spent 2 years putting together our construction permit application, submitted it, and spent 2 years defending it. Just to turn around in 2025 and be inserted into the DOE pilot reactor program. So as I mentioned in my opening comments, we're working both with the DOE and the NRC for short-term and long-term operations of this. And so significant adjustments being made along the way. It's all in the spirit of acceleration and moving this technology forward. And so we've received our fuel commitment and our salt commitment from the DOE, and so tremendous support at that level, and we're seeing a significant activity at the DOE level, moving these projects forward. As I think I don't remember if this was the administration that said it, a white glove service through the regulatory pathway. So yes, we were working very closely with DOE and NRC. From a financial perspective, I know that was thrown in there. To my point earlier, we're cutting our teeth with a demonstration reactor for that very purpose. The financial changes and modifications that have been made are easier to bear in a demonstration unit than a full size scale commercial. And so, yes, there have been changes. Yes, there have been cost increases, schedule changes, but we have been able to absorb those and work through that.
Thank you, Andrew. And I'll just point out that Amina did clarify that she meant challenges, not changes. And I think you got that with your answer, but just wanted to say that. Kreshika, go right ahead.
Sure. I mean, I can't comment on all of the work, which I know was extensive, that X-energy put into pre-licensing activities prior to Dow sort of coming on board. But I will say, I mean, we announced our site and our work with X-energy in early 2023, and it was approximately 2 years, almost to the day that we submitted our construction permit application. And so a lot of pre-work, of course, was done by X-energy related to their technology before that. But overall, I would say the collaboration with the DOE through the ARDP program, and of course all of the updates and work and collaboration that's required with them to continue to advance the program, the project, has been great. And then I think overall, just the administration support to streamline the NRC approvals process and all of those things, we are definitely the beneficiaries of. And so I would say overall, there's been from a regulatory standpoint, just a lot of support to get these things in, moving through the system and out as quickly as possible. And I mean, also while maintaining the safety case in all circumstances. And so I think we've just been really happy with how the regulatory process has been unfolding for us as it relates to the NRC and of course the support from the DOE and the administration. With regards to the financing, I mean, I don't need to keep beating on the ARDP drum, which has been huge for us. But I mean, it is challenging. I think one of the reasons that Dow has decided as the off-taker to also step in as the developer and really the owner, at least for the time being, of the project is that, there's inherent risks in first of a kind projects, and you have to figure out, one of the things that needs to be sorted is who's going to take on that risk and what the cost of taking on that risk is going to be. And so for now, Dow has decided that the best place for that to reside is with us. Of course, that might change as the project continues to progress, as we continue to meet milestones and get further down the pathway. Additional avenues of funding might open up, and we're always happy to talk to people about that. But overall, that's sort of how we're managing those different risks.
Thank you, Kreshka. Katie.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what Kreshka said about ARDP because we really are incredibly fortunate to have that resource. But on the regulatory side of the question, we pursued the Part 50 approach with NRC, and so that's a two-step. It's the construction permit application followed by the operating license application, and we set out from very, very early to establish a really strong relationship with the NRC before any documents were submitted. We really worked with them to, for lack of a better term, educate the NRC and these offices on what our technology does, what it does not do, what we have based our technology off of, what we're using for our safety case to de-risk, just various components before we even got into the official paperwork and the official applications. And I think that really went a long way for us. It built credibility early on. And the hurdles that we see are nothing unique to TerraPower. It is something that, all companies who are going through an NRC process, this is what they deal with. And so I think because we preempted a lot of these challenges and a lot of these questions, it's really worked well in our favor. And now moving forward, we have this base case for our future regulatory engagements. And I think that's really been a model. And we hope it's something that other companies will be able to do as well, because it's really, really been a huge success for us.
Really helpful. Great. Thank you so much, Katie. Next question is from
just add one thing.
Oh, go ahead. Sure. Sorry.
Just broadly, that the way that we've always been successful in energy technology innovation and commercialization in the US is that it's private sector led and government enabled, and that you need both companies who are willing to take some risks, who have technical chops, who can manage projects, who can make things happen. And for these early mover projects, you need really good and government policies, and particularly for the first few projects, you need government support. And so we're in that place now, as we have been with other technologies historically, whether it be gas or renewables, and this sort of next generation nuclear energy. It's both are essential, both this really good industry action as well as government action.
Thank you, Judy. Last question, because the other two are comments, but the last question, it's not directed to anyone in particular, but it's from Dan Solitz. Do you have plans to dispose primary sodium upon decommissioning?
Yeah, that would be for me. So we are, of course, very focused on commissioning, but we do think about, one day our reactors will have to power down just to be replaced by new Natrium reactors, of course. And so what we have done when it comes to anything decommissioning related is really lean on previous programs, Monju, Phoenix, FFTF, EBR1, EBR2, look at how they've handled either decommissioning of certain parts or storage of materials. And that's how we're really building our story around decommissioning. So we have a spent fuel plan already. Whenever we look at, sodium from the primary pumps and the primary loop, see how Manju has handled theirs, see what their plans are for transporting that sodium, which of course has now solidified. And so, we're really exploring all the different avenues. It's not really something that we plan to really have to initiate for, let's hope, 60 years, but it's something that we're definitely working on already.
Thank you, Katie. Last two comments. Robert Freeman from Framatome says something to consider would be to establish a difference between a claim, a target, and verified progress in the tracker to allow all forms of information to be represented.
It's not a bad idea, Robert. I think you're cutting to there's a lot out there, and so an additional flag and what some of that means might be helpful. So I appreciate that comment.
Thank you. Judy, did you want to add anything? You look like you're about, no, okay. So I saved the last comment here because I thought we might end on a high note. Tom Moore from Sargent & Lundy says, this tool sounds awesome. I'm curling up with this baby tonight with a nice Chardonnay and checking it all out. Thanks much. So, wow, I didn't see that one coming when we started out today. I hope it's a good glass of wine, Thomas. Actually, one more. Rob Sweeney says, add a funds in decision milestone to the tracker. So more feedback for you, James and Judy. But with that, I'm going to turn things over to James and Judy just to share a couple final thoughts as we wrap up.
Yeah, I guess I'll start and Judy, let you conclude. We thank all of you for coming. We appreciate your interest in all of this. There is so much happening in the nuclear industry right now. And we're trying to collect it, and we're trying to make sure that all kinds of stakeholders have access to this data. But then what it really means is that there are these great companies behind all of this doing this amazing work. And so, when you use this, Katie mentioned from a business development, I worked business development right before this, so I know that, or before this job, excuse me. So I know that you're always working that angle. But please look for these people from these companies. Reach out, have conversations. I know a lot of their business folks would love to get in touch. And if you have other questions about the tracker, you have this. Suggestions, like we've seen a lot of pretty good ones in here today, reach out to NIA, please let me know. With that, thank you everybody for coming, and thank our panelists, and I'll turn to Judy.
Thanks so much, and thanks to all of our panelists and for this great audience. We are somewhat, I guess, we're passionate at NIA about being useful. So please let us know how useful this is, how we can make it more useful, and we will continue to keep it up to date and to make sure that we get to everyone the best information that we can find. And we really appreciate everyone's participation today, and also really look forward to your feedback as we move ahead.
Well, James and Judy, thank you so much. And to everyone, I hope this conversation has highlighted another important information resource that will help you do your work. As a reminder, you may access the tracker under the Advanced Nuclear tab on the NIA website at www.nuclearinnovationalliance.org. In addition, one other little bit of homework, you should join the more than 4,400 people who follow the NIA on LinkedIn. All kinds of great timely updates on their work, perspective on news of the day, news updates, bulletins, all kinds of great stuff. For now, though, please join me in thanking our special guests, Kreshka Young, Katie Spence, and Andrew Harmon for joining us today. On behalf of Judy Greenwald, Dr. James Richards, and the entire NIA team, thank you for your interest in new nuclear reactor technologies, and thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you online again soon for our next webinar, so make sure you watch your email for that invitation. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.